Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday evening, so you know what time it is. It's time for you guys to hear my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses for week 2 of this NFL season. It's great to have the NFL back this year. I hope you guys won your fantasy matchups over this weekend and you can go 2-0 this next week. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into this video, just as I always do, just in case we have any first time listeners. My waiver wire targets, I'm going to give you guys my top quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and flex ad of the week. These players have to have at least 50% roster availability. I do that off the Yahoo leagues. So there is a good chance that these players are available in your leagues. And I like to do 50% too, because just in case you guys listen to this video after the waivers are processed, there might be a chance that these guys are still out there on the market for you to add to your rosters. We do have a couple repeat names for my waiver wire list last week, so hopefully maybe you listened to me and added those players already, especially my top running back out of the week. I'm sure you guys already know who that is. Not the guy last night. He definitely is in this video. But yeah, let's just go ahead and start it. My quarterback ad of the week. He was my quarterback ad of last week. I'm going with Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. He's available in 66% of the leagues. He definitely paid off last week if you picked him off the waivers and decided to stream him with the 289 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also had 3 rushes for 21 yards. That is one of the one of the underrated part of the games. You know, Baker's never going to run for like over 50 yards in a game, but if he has to, Baker can pick up you 10 to 20 yards in a game. You know, that's 1 to 2 points. And I do like his matchup this week too. They're going against the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford threw for 317 yards and a touchdown. He did have that interception in that game, but we all know at this point interceptions don't really mean much in fantasy football. So yeah, if you maybe you lost a Jordan Love, if you are looking for a replacement quarterback until Jordan Love is back, I think Baker Mayfield is the prime candidate, especially with he's got Mike Evans, and it looked like Chris Godwin might be back to the Chris Godwin of the past, based on his performance against the Commanders on Sunday. My running back out of the week. He was my running back out of the week last week. Again, I hope you guys listened to me where I said you should pick him up and stash him. I definitely was wrong about saying not playing him. He definitely had a bigger performance than I expected. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins, he's actually still available in 51% of the leagues. In that game, he had 10 rushes for 135 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 4 yards on 3 targets. Not a lot of production through the air, but I do like they at least gave him 3 targets in the passing attack. And he's got a great matchup. I'll go into more of it tomorrow, but they're going against the Panthers, where they gave up 180 rushing yards and allowed 4.9 yards per carry against the Saints the past Sunday. And yeah, so if you are maybe you're a CMC owner and maybe Jordan Mason was already picked up, maybe you can go get yourself a J.K. Dobbins if he's out there on the market. My wide receiver ad of the week, I'm going with the Giants. If anybody's been following me for a long time, you know I love year 3 wide receivers. So I'm going with Wan'Dale Robinson. He's available in 90% of the leagues. It's not the greatest passing attack with Daniel Jones, but what really stood out to me is those 12 targets, right? He had 6 receptions for 44 yards on 12 targets. You'd want to see a better efficiency between him and Jones, converting more of those targets into receptions. And I also like it that they gave him a rush where he ran the ball one time for 14 yards. So he had at least 7 touches, where he could have at least had up to 13 touches if they can convert more of those targets into catches. And then he is having a great matchup this week against the Commanders, who I just talked about, who Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went off against off to. Now, right now, in my opinion, though, as much as I like Wan'Dale Robinson as a wide receiver ad, I think he's more of a bench ad. Let's just see if he's going to see these consistent targets, and then if he can get those targets into higher production, maybe he's a guy to slide into your list. If you guys remember my year 3 video I did back in July, Wan'Dale Robinson was in my section, in my tier that I talked about, year 3 wide receivers to monitor their situation through the preseason and the first month of the season. Off to a good start with those 12 targets. Let's see if that can continue, and then maybe you could start sliding him into your lineups. But I think he's definitely worth of a add to your bench if you need some wide receiver depth, especially after like the injury to Puka Nacua. this past weekend. My tight end out of the week, everybody's already know what it's going to be. It's going to be Isaiah Likely. He's available in 72% of the leagues. Now, back in July, not to pat my own back again, but he was one of my tight ends I set the target late and have on your bench because I thought the Ravens would run more 12 personnel this year because of how productive Likely was last year, and that's exactly what they did against the Chiefs. They ran out there with Andrews and Likely. He had the 9 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown on 12 targets. Going against the Raiders this week, they went against the Chargers, who didn't really target their tight ends too much, but still Hayden Hurst in that game had a couple catches for like 30 something yards, and I think Will Dissly had a couple catches as well. But I will say this with Isaiah Likely, I definitely his ceiling's up there, so if you pick him up, you're going to put him in. But John Harbaugh, the Ravens coach, already admitted this in his press conference. I think this was on Monday, where he said, yeah, this is what we want. We want Likely to go off 1 week. We want Zay to go off 1 week. We want Andrews to go off a week. He even mentioned Rashad Bateman, Derrick Henry. He even said in that press conference, he was like, there's going to be weeks you guys are probably going to ask me, why did Isaiah Likely only get 2 targets? So you guys, if you do add him, you have to have like the expectation that there probably will be weeks where Likely's not going to get a lot of targets. The coach is already admitting that, but he just offers such a high ceiling, and you just got to gamble on it. And this tight end position's terrible. Like it's basically you got to get somebody that that could potentially see 8+ targets, and Likely already saw that in the first game, so that's why he's definitely the tight end out of the week. Flex out of the week, I already kind of talked about him. We all saw what he did against the Jets last night. Jordan Mason, he's available in 62% of leagues. Last night he did have those 28 rushes for 147 yards. He had 1 reception for 5 yards on 1 target. Now it came out today that CMC has an Achilles tendonitis. It does sound like CMC is probably not going to play this weekend, so Mason has at least value for 1 more week. But obviously we just have to monitor CMC's value, because obviously once CMC is back, Mason's value drops, but with an Achilles type of injury, Mason should be rostered going forward throughout the season, because even if CMC returns, like, are they going to ease him back into the lineup? What happens if that Achilles tendonitis flares up again, and then Mason's value goes right back to RB1 status, just because he is the top back in a Kyle Shanahan system. Going against the Vikings this week, who relatively kept the rushing attack for the Giants in check, but that was mainly because they were up by so many points that the Giants did have to throw the ball quite a bit in that game. So I wouldn't expect them to slow down this 49ers rushing attack like they did against the Giants on Sunday. So yeah, those are my top waiver wire targets, ads of the week. Moving into my top streamable defenses, and again, as I always do every week, just in case we have any first-time listeners, these defenses, they have to have at least 50% roster availability, so there is a good chance they're available out there in your leagues. And then I almost do this every week because sometimes I get wrong. Like the Bengals definitely didn't pay off last week. It's not like they got you negative points, but they didn't hit their potential ceiling like I thought they would. There is definitely a risk if you stream defenses. That's the name of the game. Sometimes you get it right. Like if you streamed the Saints defense last week, that was a great streaming option. So yeah, let's just go ahead and dive into this. Speaking of the Saints, look what they did against the Panthers. So yeah, the Chargers are the number 1 streaming defense on this week's list. They are available in 86% of the leagues right now. Obviously, the Panthers' offense is a complete mess. Their offensive line's terrible, going against a defensive line that has Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. So I see a lot of sack potential. There's going to be turnover potential. And what I do like about the Chargers, too, is that next week they play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who didn't really light up the world. They didn't even score a touchdown somehow in that win over the Falcons on Sunday. So if we don't see any drastic improvement by the Steelers offense, you could potentially stream the Chargers defense next week. So that's why I also give them a little edge on the value for week 2. My number 2 one, I'm going to go with the Seahawks against the Patriots. The Seahawks are available in 57% of the leagues. Obviously, the Patriots did a lot better than I expected, but they mainly just ran the ball. They didn't put up a lot of points, which is a good thing if you stream defenses. That way you're not getting any type of potential negative points. I think the Seahawks are going to be able to, especially underneath Mike McDonald, should be able to go ahead and get in there, get some sacks, and can potentially create some turnovers. I just don't see this Patriots offense putting up a lot of points. I mean, they only got to 16 points in that win. So that's why I think the Seahawks this week is more of a high floor streaming defense, but there's always the potential for a high ceiling because I still have no belief right now in that Patriots offensive line where we could see those Seahawks get some sacks racked up this weekend. My number 3 streamable defense, I am going to go with the Colts against the Packers. The Colts are available in 92% of leagues. This is strictly because Jordan Love is expected not to play this weekend. That means Malik Willis will be the quarterback for Green Bay, who they traded for just 2 weeks ago. So he's had 2 weeks to try to learn the system. Then you also have to factor in that this week is more than likely the first time he's getting legit practice reps with his wide receivers. That's 3 days of practice. He's going to be throwing to the number, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, all those guys for like the first time since he's arrived in Green Bay. He's probably been working with the 4th and 5th and 6th and practice squad guys in practice. So is there going to be chemistry? I doubt it. Is there going to be timing with his wide receivers? That's why I could see, especially he's not the most accurate quarterback, so I could see the potential for the Colts to create some turnovers and also get some sacks because of how the Colts defensive front at least looked as far as an active pass rush. They definitely struggle in the rush defense, but when you can try to bottle up and take away Josh Jacobs in this matchup and force Malik Willis to beat you, that's what they should be doing, and that could potentially lead to sacks and turnovers. My number 4 streaming defense I like this week, I'm going to go with the Jaguars against the Browns. The Jaguars are available in 96% of the leagues. We saw how bad Deshaun Watson was this past Sunday. He turned the ball over. There was a lot of sacks because they're down their 2 tackles. And if the Browns are down their 2 tackles, they're going against Josh Hines-Allen, Travon Walker, Eric Armstead, a very good defensive front in Jacksonville, which can create those sacks. And this is a home game for the Jaguars, so that you can factor that in, that they'll have the home field advantage. So that's why I definitely like the Browns as a streaming option. Now, my number 5 one, this is more if you are in a 12 or 14 team league and you don't really get the streaming defense that you want. If you want to take a roll of the dice, I would definitely consider rolling the dice on the Commanders defense against the Giants. The Commanders are available in 99% of leagues, and this is nothing for the Commanders defense because they did not look impressive against the Bucs this past weekend. This is strictly because of how bad Daniel Jones looked and how bad that offense looked in New York this past weekend. This is a home game for the Commanders. Dan Quinn is familiar with the Giants because he was a DC of the Cowboys last year, so he knows what to expect out of this Giants offense. So I could see them taking advantage of the familiarity. So I think like I said, I don't know if you want to go out there and actively do it, but if you were to miss out on a Chargers defense, if you were to miss out on a Seahawks, a Colts defense, and you're in a 12-14 team league and there's no really good options out there, sometimes rolling the dice on streaming a defense and a matchup between bad defenses, sometimes it works out in your favor because weird things happen in those games. Fumble recoveries for touchdowns, punt return for touchdowns. So that's why that's a roll of the dice play this week. So yeah, those are my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses for week 2 of this NFL season. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe and follow me on all my social media platforms. I'm on X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. You can usually find me at Cody Talks NFL. On my X platform, I have a link tree that connects you to all my social media platforms if you want to do that. And then you guys will be getting my normal top starts and sits tomorrow night, so stay tuned for that. That's why you should subscribe, so you guys can get that as soon as it hits my platforms. So yeah, you guys enjoy your night, your evening, your morning, whenever you're watching this. I'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace out.